الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Al-Bukhari by Zabidi rahimahullah, and we'll be picking up from where we had stopped in the last lesson. So we're discussing, as the author rahimahullah, he mentioned Kitab al-Salah. So mentioned matters pertaining to Salah, and discussing concerning in general matters pertaining to Al-Masjid, so the adab and the ahkam related to the masjid to some degree. So we'll be picking up from where we had stopped. Bi'awnillahi ta'ala. Naam.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Kitab al-Salah, Bab, chapter number 33. Is it permissible to dig the graves of pagans of the period of ignorance and to use that place as a mosque? Narrated Aisha radiallahu anha, narrated Aisha عن حبيبة وأم سلمة رضي الله عنهما ذكرتا كسينا رأيناها بالحبشة فيها تصاور فذكرتا ذلك للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال إن أولئك إذا كان فيهم رجل الصالح فمات بنوا على قبره مسجدا وصوروا فيه تلك الصور فأولئك شرار الخلق عند الله يوم القيامة. And Aisha and Habiba and Salama mentioned about church they had seen in Ethiopia in which there were pictures. They told the Prophet ﷺ about it, on which he said if any religious man dies amongst those people, they would build a place of worship at his grave and make these pictures in it. They will be the worst creatures with Allah on the day of resurrection.
Inshallah, let's read the English, inshallah, make it, as they have many hadiths. So they mentioned regarding concerning that the chapter heading that they mentioned that is relating to matters covering ahkam al-masjid. So of those things that the author rahimahullah it is concerning masjid or places where before that there were a burial ground, but then the bodies were removed and that place became a masjid. So this was the hadith of Aisha anha regarding concerning this particular discussion. You mentioned two hadith, but the first hadith kind of somewhat mentioned regarding what was seen and observed by those who have visited place of a non-Muslim regarding how they treated their place of worship. So they mentioned hadith that of Aisha anha, and the hadith there is narrated by Habiba wa Salama, both are wives of the Prophet alayhi salam. So they mentioned ذكرت Khanisa, that both that they mentioned regarding Al-Kanisa, that they have saw Ra'ina bil-Habasha, that when they visit Al-Habasha, and Habasha regarding concerning Hijrah. So regarding to the Sahaba, that in the early days while they were still in Mecca, that due to the persecution that they were experiencing then, that the Prophet ﷺ, that he allowed some of the Muslims for them to make Al-Hijrah or to make Al-Hijrah from one place to another, which is they left from Al-Medina where they were being persecuted by the Kuffar then, and then they went to Habasha seeking some form of refuge. So they went to Habasha, that was then still a Christian nation, that a non-Muslim country, but they went there seeking some form of protection from what they were what they were experiencing from the kuffar in Mecca. Then I mentioned that mentioned fiha tasawir, that of those things that they observe inside these kanisa. They mentioned regarding of those who have mentioned this hadith, that they mentioned kanisa, the hadith mentioned kanisa. As for they mentioned a kanisa is the place which is the place that is used by a Christian for their worship. So they mentioned that the kanisa is more so the place that is used by a Christian for their worship. So they said a church. So this is the place that is designated or used by the Christian to observe their acts of worship in that building. Then they mentioned that also in the book of Qamus, that they mentioned that kanisa, or that's a kanisa. So also kanisa, also at times it is used regarding the place that is used by the Christian and also by the Yahud. So the Qamus, that I mentioned that kanisa at times is used in regards to place that is used as the place used as a place of worship by the Christian that is well known, but also kanisa is used for the Yahud as a place of worship. But it is more known that the kanisa is referred to a church used by the Christian for their worship. So of those things they observe inside the kanisa, that they mention tasawir, which is pictures. So things of pictures which were inside of these buildings of worship. So they mention that as a way concerned that to let the Prophet know concerning of those things of mukhalafat, of those things that things that were not allowed that they were doing. So for us as Muslim, those are considered to be things which are not allowed, not permissible, that places of worship, that you have pictures of different people that are within it. So those things for the Muslim, they found something which was strange. For the Muslim, they saw it as something which is strange. Then when they mention what they mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ, then they mention in ahula, إِذَا كَانَ فِيهِمْ الرَّجُلُ الصَّالِحُ, that the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard of this, then he kind of somewhat then mentioned, by way of, so they have Habiba and Salama, they are mentioning what they have seen and experienced in Habasha, and especially in the place of worship regarding those people. Then he mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ then he wished now to comment on this matter by way of revelation. Then he mentioned in ahula إِذَا كَانَ فِيهِمْ رَجُلٌ صَالِحٌ, that you find amongst those people that if they add a person who is said to be a upright rajulun salih, then it mentioned famat, and this person mat. Then it mentioned banu ala qabrihi masjid, that they will build upon his grave a masjid. So they mention the word masjid, that they will build upon this person's grave a masjid by way of makan sujud, a place of prostration. So their place of worship is not called masjid, but masjid, as I mentioned, ala qabrihi masjid, or masjidan, meaning masjid, a place of sujud. Clear? So not in context of their places are referred to as masjid, but what is meant by masjid here, a place where they perform sujud or salah. Clear? They mention regarding concerning rajulun salih, that defining who's said to be a person who's righteous. So rajulun salih, that a person is known that a person that he fulfill those things which is the awamir, the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Prophet ﷺ, or those things which is wajib. So the one who's said to be righteous, a righteous person, is a person known to be upright regarding his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by way of that person carrying out, fulfilling those things that are wajib upon them, those things which is compulsory upon them, and also those things which is, we say, that are mustahab. So the rajulun salih, he fulfill those things that are wajib, compulsory, also those things that are mustahab, to be done, and also he may have tawarru, that a person may have ihtiyat, or sometimes a person, rajulun salih, that he may be very cautious regarding things that are mubah. So some form of some mubah, he may be cautious regarding things that are mubah. Then it mentioned also rajulun salih, that person, that ijtinab and nawahi, that he'll avoid those things that are said, those things which is haram, and also things that are makruh. So that's concerned the person who is said to be rajulun salih. So it shows regarding concern that the people before, that of those things that if they identify a person as being a person that is righteous, and could be a female, but in most part regarding concerning a man that is said to be righteous, upright, would they see him as a form of an example for them, a role model. Now, regarding his behavior and conduct amongst the people, regarding his relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and second, his relationship with the people. So rajulun salih is a person who's mustaqim ala ibadatillah. Now, so the person who's righteous is the one who is upright, he fulfill his obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also towards the people. So you find a person who's said to be righteous, that regarding his relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is very strong, he prays at night, he does the optional fast, and optional salat, and may stay in the masjid, read Quran often, but his relation with the people is very poor, then that's not a rajulun salih. That's not a righteous person. So the person, yes, his personal relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may be deemed to be upright. He prays, meaning the nawafil, even the compulsory salat, always in the masjid for the compulsory salat, always doing his nawafil. Is siyam, the compulsory, yes, even the nawafil. He does qiyamul layl often. He's in the masjid often. But with his relationship with the people, he's opposite. he cheats, he lies. Free, very loose with women, then that's not a righteous person. That's not Rajulun Salih. So the Rajulun Salih is the person that his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is good, and also is dealing with the people is good. So the combination between both together. If the person also, and the person that in our society, so the person is, if he's upright regarding he's dealing with others, but poor in the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's not also a righteous person. He has to have both in place. So it shows regarding those people recognize the person that is said to be Rajulun Salih, and they'll treat him somewhat indifferent. And they'll treat that person somewhat indifferent. So you show that also that it's a fitna that goes regarding concerning the people, how they look towards those who are said to be role models. That can be a fitna. So with the Rajulun Salih, that what they would do when the person, when I mentioned, فَإِذَا مَاتْ, or when he dies, then it mentioned that they will build banu ala qabrihi masjid. They would build a masjid, a place of worship, over his grave. So that was of the practice that the Prophet kind of somewhat was shunning this practice. He was shunning this practice. So it showed that for this ummah of Islam, that we are not to copy the people of the book or those who before us regarding this practice of turning their place of worship as a form of a place of remembrance of righteous people.
So when they was building those masjids, are they worshipping that person, or are they still worshipping God, or did they build a masjid purposely to
Worship that person?
Worship that person, or did they just build a masjid there?
Hey, we'll come to that bit. We'll try to come to that bit regarding as-salat fil masajid fi kubur. So I said that, like for example, Al-Shaykh in his explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed, he discussed concerning after different stages. We mentioned that which you find, as that a person may build a person have died. And a person will go and just pray on his grave in trying to, because he believes that pray right there in that spot. You really find that. But you might find, even amongst the Muslim, as we'll discuss, that a person that is said to be righteous, that he might pass away, when after his death, they will put his grave in the masjid. As a form of recognition for his piety. So he's not to be buried with everyone else. He's to be given his masjid to be his grave is to be placed in the masjid because he is a righteous person. So come to that inshallah. So they mentioned regarding concerning, it shows regarding that impermissibility regarding building or concern to know that building masjid over graves. So the person who passed away, then building a masjid over their grave, then that's haram. And that's not allowed. Then I mention also it shows regarding concern the next matter discussed concerning that fiha tasawir. That also it shows regarding that that as for masajid, that things regarding being overly decorated and even more so having pictures or pictures of people who have passed away or drawings of people who have passed away, then that's haram. And also said that the general caution regarding that they mentioned regarding that this issue regarding using grave turned into a place of worship, where initially that was done as a form of when righteous people died, that the people wanted to add something to remember them. But then you can somewhat those people who would build certain type of signs to remember them. After a while, those things, the reason was lost. It was lost by the generations that came later. So the initial people who had certain things in place to remind them of those righteous people without worshipping them. But the message or the reason became lost after generation, and then those things, those individuals become the object of worship. So they mention that now this concerning, so you find that of that thing regarding concerning that could lead to those things, that these are concerned of wasail ila shirk, that these are means that could lead to shirk. We're having pictures, paintings of people, statues of people. Today you find that amongst some they have pictures of righteous people, but also a common practice regarding having pictures and statues of heads of states within the country. Now, so you might go to certain countries that many countries, illa man rahimallah. Now, they will go to many countries that the person who's the rais, the person who's the head of state, whoever they are, that you have their pictures in all government buildings. And also in certain type of, offices of government officials, you'll even have this. Even you have certain type of, any type of gatherings, you'll have their pictures are there. Why? So this can sense. So I said no. That of this thing that is something that having these of picture, there's no need for it. And it could lose. It serves no purpose, but is a practice amongst many, especially regarding concerning either for righteous people, and also second for people who are heads of state. So this is the fitna that comes with that. There was a clipping that I saw on YouTube. Allah Mustan. So you have this guy. I guess they are in another country in Europe, one of our neighboring countries, that is Muslim country. But they dress a certain way. They have this cone type of shape, type of hat, like some type of cult type of thing. And this person will inherit from his father the position of being the chief of that cult. Or that sector, or whatever they are. Most Qatins, they're tasawwuf, highly Sufi. So you find that in his chair that he's giving, his whatever talk he's giving, that he has like pictures of those who preceded him, regarding the people who are in charge of those that order. You have their pictures right there in their place where they give their lectures and the like. There's no reason for those things. So they mentioned regarding of those things, that was the thing that was somewhat disapproved of the people before, having pictures of people for no reason. It was also find, unfortunately, it was also find regarding that's become of the fitna of us today. We say you have those people having pictures, frames with people. You understand that? They have the next issue regarding concern that we have with our phone. You understand? That we always mentioned. That the thing that you said that those people look to Rajulun Saleh, and they saw them as the example. The people today look to concerning the Mashaykh and Talabatul Ilm as what? The example. But today you find that some of the Tullabul Ilm in their behavior is like that of the Awam. Sometimes you find some of the so-called Tullabul Ilm are people who say that are supposed to be. We use the word supposed to be. We use the word supposed to be. Tullabul Ilm, and their behavior in these things, they are like the Awam. They are like the common people. They take picture of everything when they need not doing it. Why? Yes, if we see the Awam doing it, taking somewhat as the person who is the Talib to somewhat to remind them there's no need. But you doing it, or you're going to tell the people that what they're doing is unbefitting. When you are doing it. So they look to you as what? An example. He's doing it. He's a Talib al-Ilm supposed to be. And he's doing it. He walked down the road and he's taking his picture. So I said to know that taking of these pictures and photos and I said even for what is called and there you love your
DP.
What's DP?
Display picture.
Yeah, your status thing. Why you need to have your picture? Why you need to have your picture? You have your name and you have your picture. Why? You're supposed to be a Talib al-Ilm. That's the action you see of the Awam, and you tell them, would you have your wife put her picture up and her status? Would you want your wife to be DM or PM or whatever you call it? That having her picture always taken, doing her thing. So said that for the Talib al-Ilm to be what? Qudwa linnas. In those things which is good, we have to know that there's line that you cannot cross and shouldn't cross, because the people that see your example and follow you. And the awam today, they need guidance. So the mention of this, the fitna of the people before was regarding taswir, and also still a fitna today. Still a fitna today. If you look at the Mashaykh al-Kibar, you really find their picture on these things. They don't even have there, they don't have these things. So you look to them as an example, not to the shabab, tulab al-ilm, who somewhat they themselves don't know where they're coming or going. Then it meant,
I see some on YouTube as well, like some people that are giving dawah. It's like they're having a conversation with someone, and then because they're known, people are coming up to them and say, "Let me take a picture of your shirt."
that's even worse. Everyone, you understand, take a picture, you're taking a picture of the person, and when you're putting your,
It's like a celebrity.
it becomes a celebrity, it becomes a celebrity type of thing. It becomes like a celebrity type of thing. Where everyone comes, you want to take a picture. You understand? So they said no for the Talib al-Ilm. They said no, that the Talib al-Ilm, that you have these books that are books are regarding the adab of Talib al-Ilm. You must read those books twice a year to remind yourself of the protocols that are to be followed. Because you read a reminder, so you don't lose track of what is expected from you. So you need those books that remind regarding the adab of the talib, you understand, and also you look to the kibar ulama as your always example. That even our life today, and have to deal with these things. Nambo said, due to the fact of, you understand, of fame and popularity, then Allah musta'an wa alayhi tuklan. A lot of people, they fall victim to this. A lot fall victim to this. Then I mentioned that regarding concern, these people are said to be the worst of the mention at ma tafaban ala qabri masjid. So it's mentioned of building of things upon their masjid. A matter discussed between the ulama that regarding the next matters that mention regarding concerning that hukum regarding as-salat fil masjid fihi qabr. What's the ruling pertaining to praying in a masjid where there's a grave? And it's a masjid. We're talking about masjid, Muslim masjid. But there's a grave in it. That will claim that that person is righteous or whatever. So what's the ruling pertaining to this? The ulama I mentioned, and of this in quick, that kind of somewhat jot down in quick what is mentioned by Sheikh Ali Firqaus. And many have discussed the matter, but he mentioned regarding concerning that Salih Firqaus was a Mashaykh from Jazair, which from Algeria. Specialist in usul wal fiqh. Then he mentioned regarding concerning the nutshell what he mentions, that man salla li ajli, a person who pray in such a masjid that is a grave in it. In whatever direction. So the masjid, it is built, there's a grave inside the masjid. So he mentioned a person who pray in such a masjid min ajli, for the reason for doing so, tabarruk bil qabr, that he's doing it as a form of that they believe that there's a blessing in that masjid because that grave is in it. Clear? So if there's some type that masjid has to have a certain type of virtue, the fact that there's that particular wali or righteous person is buried there and his grave is there. So that masjid has something which is have some type of fadila, it have some type of virtue. Then I mentioned that, or he believes, or he may have this belief that there's a additional virtue and superiority of this masjid because of this grave in it. Clear? Then he mentioned the person that somewhat does such, that does barakah, wa tabarruk, wa ziyadat fil fadl, and the likes in that masjid. وَقَالْ أَنَّ صَلَاتُهُ تُبْتَلْ, that his salat is invalid. The person's salat is valid. So regardless of the person, and as I mentioned that, قَوْلٌ وَاحِدٌ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ جَمِيعًا, that this is a single position taken by all the ulama. That's a single position taken by all the ulama, that if the person who prays in a masjid, believing that have a grave in it, believing that that masjid have certain type of virtue because of that grave, and it is special, then that salat is invalid. That salat is invalid. So can you imagine that a person who does this every day? And you have some people who does this every day. So that's concerned. So the person's salat is invalid. That salat is of no value. That have been prayed. Then he mentioned, so that's an ijma between the ulama.
What about if a person doesn't know? What if a person doesn't know there's a grave?
No, so I said the first case that we gave is the person who he knows it is there, and he's praying for a reason in that masjid. So he said that salat is invalid. Now, as for the next case that concerned the person who prays in the masjid, whether and could be and he mentioned that في من صلى ولم تتعلق نفسه بالقبر, that a person may pray in that masjid. Either he's unaware, but he's praying there. He prayed, but he sees no preference to that masjid because of that grave. He just prayed because maybe it's his local masjid, or he just prayed there because he have to go by. He prayed there oddly, or rarely, or he prayed there didn't know, and he prayed there. But a person, he has no attachment regarding that grave in that masjid, but he just happens to pray there. With us? So he mentioned regarding concern that in that masa you have no khilaf bin al-ulama. So in that case you have a khilaf bin al-ulama. So the person, he just praying there, not attaching anything to that masjid that has a grave in it. So they mentioned on that matter of the ulama is the salat. So he doesn't see that masjid that he's not done out of ta'zeeman or barakah or none of those things. Is attached to him praying there. Then I mentioned that ala madhab, so you have Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, also Imam Malik and Ash-Shafi'i alayhim rahmatullah jami'an fa'imatul arba. Then I mentioned anna salat tusah, that praying in such a masjid, then one salat is valid. One salat is still valid. Ma karahiyah, with also, so let's say the salat is still valid, but it is something which is disliked to be done. So Imam Malik or Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, wa Shafi, they all that are praying in a masjid, then the person's salat is still considered to be valid, but also that is something disliked to be done, and to avoid if you can avoid it. And of those, amongst those who mention, if the person was to pray inside a masjid where the grave is in the direction of the Qibla, even more so, the person should avoid praying there. So if the qabr, the grave, is in the direction of the Qibla, in that direction, then more so for the person to avoid praying that masjid, become more disliked. More disliked. They mentioned regarding concerning that, like hadith like these, that mentioned regarding that ulaika shirar al-khalq inda Allah, that show concern that the impermissibility of praying in such places, of those type of places. They mentioned the Prophet Islam kind of somewhat, they said, becomes disliked but still valid. They mentioned the Prophet Islam said ju'ilat li al-ard masjidan wa tahuran. The Prophet Islam mentioned that it was given to me as something special, that the masajid, when concerned, I could pray anywhere on the earth, and also it is used as a form of tahara. So that if a person prays in this masjid, then it is still allowed but disliked, according to their position. According to their position. But as the first view taken by some of the ulama. The second position of the ulama on this matter, and it's the position taken by Ahmad rahimahullah, where mentioned أنه لا تصح الصلاة في المسجد بنية على قبور أو قبر, that it is a person's salat is not valid praying inside a masjid as a grave. I find that of contemporary, like Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah, also of that view, the person who prays inside a masjid, his salat is invalid, and the person need to renew it elsewhere. So you can't means that repeat his salat away from that masjid. So you can't pray that masjid and pray again in it. No, then you have to pray elsewhere. Because praying in that masjid, then your salat is invalid. You need to pray elsewhere. So that's concerning, and they use concern the hadith, the many hadith regarding not praying in maqabir. Aywa.
So it's risky for people to be praying. You see, like if you go to Janaza, and some places they have a masjid inside
The graveyard.
Inside the graveyard.
Hey, we'll come to that one. Okay, I see. Where we at? So as for said, in this case, we're saying inside the masjid, there's a grave. Now, so inside the masjid, there's a building, within the masjid premises or the masjid building, that there's a grave inside the masjid. Then you might have a second case, so said that those are aqwal of the ulama. Then a third case that you may have that the grave, they are not inside the building but on the compound. But in a separate, so you have the masjid walls, 4 walls, then you have the fence for the masjid. On the compound of the masjid, there's still a grave. But it's not inside the masjid. It's to the side of the masjid and not inside the masjid. Then starting that one, labas. Because it's outside. But ideal for them to remove that grave and maybe put it in the place designated for burial. And not leave it isolated inside on the masjid compound. Clear? Then fourth scenario, as we mentioned, that is a book that discusses regarding concern a discussion now between the ulama that is being discussed, is what we find that in the burial ground, right? Inside the burial ground, so you have the 4 walls of the burial ground, but inside there's a masjid that is built, or musalla. So burial ground, but on the compound, there's a masjid on the compound. There's no grave inside that masjid. But where the masjid is built, on the compound of the graveyard. And we have cases like these, right? In London. With me? Hey, so not mentioning names. So we have scenarios like those, cases where on the burial compound, there's a masjid that is there. That masjid, if to be used, is for praying maybe Salatul Janazah. Then that's not a problem. To pray Salatul Janazah, so you take the body there and to pray Janazah. So Janazah is also more preferred to be prayed outside the masjid. So to pray Salatul Janazah, that's not an issue. But the issue becomes with that masjid on the compound of the burial ground, that masjid, can you pray the normal salat there? You go there and it's Dhuhr or Asr. Are you allowed to pray Asr in that masjid on the burial ground, burial compound? Khilaf between the ulama. Of those who mentioned that, you are allowed if there's a clear, that there's a structure regarding that 4 walls that distinguish between the building and the burial area. Or you have a street or pathway that distinguish between both. So you have that aqwal between the ulama. Then you have those who say the fact that is on that compound is not allowed. It's not allowed from the fact that he's on that compound, is in the maqbara, is not allowed. And that's the qawl that I believe is more correct. Because I mentioned, la tusalli fi maqabir. You're not to pray in a burial ground. So if that burial ground, you're saying that the 4, when you enter, you have the entry, you have the entry gate and the exit gate, and you have a wall, then that's the burial ground. That's the entire burial ground. Whether you use all of it or not, you are in the burial ground when you enter the entry gate. And you leave the burial ground when you, what? Leave. So, when you make the dua, where you make the dua? When you enter the burial ground. When you make the dua, when you go to the burial ground, where do you make the dua? Where? When you enter, we said before you enter, where? Where will be that place? You make the dua when you enter. Which will be right as you enter the gates. Sahamla. You with me? And the answers are. Now, so the scenario overall is that what we have concerning that those type of places. You understand? There's a khilaf between ulama, but I'm of the view that praying inside those places, in those masjid slash musalla on the inside the burial ground, that normal salat is not to be prayed there. It's not valid because it's in the burial ground. That's the position that I hold. So that's concerning those matters. Then, so they said that going back concerning those who said regarding concerning that praying inside the masjid that has a grave, that represented that those who say it is haram completely mentioned that the general ruling regarding concerning the many ahadith regarding nahi as-salat fil maqabir or fi makbar, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, and also regarding what we mentioned, and I mentioned that an-nahi yaqtadi al-fasad wal-butlan, that a general rule between the ulama of usul al-fiqh is that thing that is prohibited, forbidden, then that the ruling that comes with it, that thing becomes fasid, becomes invalid, and also it becomes invalid. So that is the case regarding salat inside a masjid that has a grave. Then that salat is invalid, according to that view that is taken. So they mention that if a person was to do so without knowledge, Mustafa?
No.
So the person was to pray in a masjid, they went to a masjid, they didn't know, and they prayed. Then after they noticed that there's a masjid inside, that there's a grave inside that masjid, then according to the second view, so instead of the the first view, his salat is valid, but he has done something which is disliked. As for the second view, that their position is that that person's salat is invalid, and the person need to renew his salat outside that masjid, the fact that he is aware that there's a grave inside that building. So that's concerning that discussion. Then the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Sawiru fiha tilka a surah, that of the thing that there's people that they put concerning, they'll put all these pictures inside their building. فَأُولَٰئِكَ شِرَارٌ خَلْقِ اللَّهِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ. These are words of the people with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ. So sure that you know that matter is something that I mentioned, that they are the worst of people. يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ is all sure that is something which is haram. All of these indicating that this act regarding concerning putting off pictures inside the place of worship and the likes, it is something which is haram. It is haram to be done. Aywa.
So what's the hal here? The hal of one that prays in a place for pictures. So the man says, okay, pictures are there, no problem, I need to pray. And he prayed. Does he affect the salah? Does he bring down the reward?
The salat is makruh. Salat makruh. The salat in a place where you have pictures, then the salat becomes makruh. The salat is valid, but makruh. As that is something which is external to the salat itself. Then this becomes the thing which is yata'allaq bi dhati salat. That's things that are attached to the salat itself, that will cause, if it is not in place, make it invalid, and things that are external, kharij salat, and things that are external. So for example, the person who prays and of the shurut salat, that is awra, is covered. So that relates to the salat itself. Then the person who so the person awra was to expose in a way which is fahish, in a very explicit way, then the salat becomes invalid, especially if he was negligent. I might have a case with a person that are thinking, where I said kharij salat, it doesn't relate to the salat itself. Then those things may not, they do not nullify the person. So the person praying in a room but somewhat noisy. His salat is still valid, but it's just that, you understand, his salat is still considered to be valid, but that's not the ideal place to pray.
Sheikh, is there a difference in the validity of the salah, like praying by yourself and behind the imam of that masjid with the grave inside?
Praying by the imam, praying behind that imam. It goes back to what we discussed. Either the person that as for your salat, it goes back to what view did the person take. Do you believe that praying in a masjid, so regardless of the imam, put it in, if you're praying in a masjid, that there's a grave in it. Regardless of who the imam is, right? Unless that imam, if the imam falls into category A of he himself as the imam with that grave in that masjid, he believed that he falls in the first category discussed regarding that he believed that that masjid has certain value because of the grave being in it. If that's his i'tiqad, then your salat is invalid. Because you're really praying by a person who's a non-Muslim. With me? But the person, the imam, that the person, so then, if you just pray behind him, and he didn't go into those matters regarding the hal of the imam, but as for looking at your salat, your personal salat, it goes back to if the person, what of the two view regarding is your salat, if you are aware that there is a grave in it, is it valid or not valid? Whether you pray with the imam or you pray by yourself. So depending on which view, what's that now? Jumhur take the view that the person's salat is still valid, but disliked. And it was said to Ahmed and those of the Hanabila who take the view on others that the person's salat, it is invalid. We say in this matter, Allahu Alam, that whatever view I've said, if you take the second view, the stronger view, that the person, we said the stronger order, the second view, which the person's salat is invalid. Now, if a person who takes a different position, not for you to, you can have a monarchy between him, but not for you to pass unjust ruling on him. Clear? Understood? I believe that praying such a masjid, as an example, I believe praying such a masjid, salat is invalid. But person A believe it is disliked praying such a masjid, and he didn't know, but he prayed and he didn't repeat his salat. It's not for me because you're anta bidah wa anta mushrik. It's not for me to then take it to that extent. With me? It's a matter we say that khilafat ulama, jumhur of the ulama, say your salat is still valid, so that has to be still at least take that into account. Take that into account. So you might say, in my view, the salat is invalid, and khalas. Give your opinion and you leave it at that without pressing, then you start to chastise the person and pass unfair judgment on that person. Clear? What time is adhan? Hey, so they discuss concerning in brief regarding concern of those things that is everything that it shows regarding that, and generally mentioned that the general ulama mentioned it's haram to pray in a masjid where there's a bina, that a grave. And also regard that is a way of said the dariya and shirk is a way of not allowing this so as to not to lead to people falling into shirk. So for people removing any form of this type of practice inside the masjid is to be removed and not to be done. Also, so they mentioned that as being so, it is generally haram to do so. Generally haram to be done. That if the masjid already established, then to put a person inside it, then then doing so is haram. Is doing so is haram to put a grave inside already established masjid. And I mentioned that Ibadat al-Nasara, that a lot of it goes back to concerning tasawir and also kubur. So the asl of Nasara al-kubur. That they worship in their church that they have today. A lot of it have pictures of saints and whatever type of things that there are people that they have inside there, and statues of people who are saints. So a lot of their worship really go back to that they are ubadul kubur. Their worship of saints and the likes. So, and also pictures. So it shows that a lot of that their worship goes back to things of idolatry. That also mentioned that tahrim taswir. Also, it shows regarding that the impermissibility of taswir, which is taking of pictures. So you find that in our time, present day time, that with all the technology that we have, picture becomes now a part of everything, in most part, but still a person try to avoid it unnecessarily. So on your Facebook, on your whatever things that they have out there, Instagram, you understand? Just avoid taking of pictures. So avoid taking of pictures that a person I would say now that it's not a good example and something to be shunned. They'll find the people who are said to be Tulab al-Ilm, that they're the ones that they also get caught up into this, of taking of pictures. Posing, you understand? If a person says, taking a picture, but the person was posing with other people. What's that? Even if you put one finger, you understand, that doesn't mean anything. There's a Talib al-Ilm to be an example, said that the acts of the awam an-nas in taking a picture. Taking with us. They do have selfie today still? They still do it? You understand? Said, but person said, I'm not the one taking a picture, but you're there posing in the picture though. So the fact that you're posing unnecessarily, you meet a person sees and also becomes this type of celebrity type of, what you call it, attitude that some of the what they have. You understand? So that we would, on the mimbar, the da'i, the khatib, the say da'i, he'll be cussing out, who's popular? Beyonce, and who else? And? Who? Jay-Z. They are cussed them out. They always on pictures and da-da-da. But you're doing the same thing. You understand? And this type of celebrity type of, we call it, fanaticism. But you're falling into it where people come to you and you're quick to take a picture with this person. You also are part of the problem. So you're criticizing others. Now, regarding this celebrity type of mindset, but you also the same thing amongst the Muslim shabab. You are the same thing. So always want to take pictures. فَاللَّهُ مُسْتَعَانٍ. They're eating food and they're taking pictures in a restaurant. What's that about? Who are you impressing? You're in a restaurant eating and you're taking pictures. The funny thing about the ones who take pictures in this situation that a person might be saying upon Quran or Sunnah and the way for Salaf Salih, but when you see them taking pictures in the restaurants, on the road, in the supermarket, in the airport, is all with Ahlul Bidah. But you're saying you are Sunni upon istiqamah, upon the way to Salaf Salih, upon Aqidah Sahih, but all your pictures with people who are mukhalifeen. So you are with them. That's how I see it. You are with them. That's how you are, based upon your actions. So it shows regarding al-jawaz, al-them, al-fahil, al-muharramat. Also the Prophet ﷺ that can somewhat condemn the practice of those people regarding of how they decorated their places of worship. Then so condemning concerning acts and also the people. So the action of how they decorated and put pictures in their place of worship. The Prophet ﷺ condemned this, and the use of taswir, of tasawir, of the picture taking, he condemned this. And also he mentioned regarding, and so those people who are involved in this mention, فَأُولَٰئِكَ شِرَارٌ الْخَلْقِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Is the worst of people with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. So condemning also those people who are involved in this. Now, the act and also the people. Now, so this shows regarding concern to that at times condemning the act and also condemning the people who carry out the act. Carrying the people who carry out the act. The next hadith he mentioned somewhat long, but on that topic, due to time, we kind of somewhat went in some detail regarding the first hadith. So inshallah ta'ala we'll end here and continue next week. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq. Aywa.
You should avoid taking pictures of yourself. And what about people actually taking a picture? Should avoid that as well?
Even that, you understand? So avoiding it is you having your picture that's been taken without a reason. You understand? Random, unnecessary pictures. At the least. Then also you doing the same for others. So a person, when they take their picture, they're posing, and they want you to take their picture. Leave me out of your thing, man. You understand? Just leave me out of it. You understand? So, not to do so for others. Not to do so for others. So that inshallah ta'ala will end. وبالله توفيق.
جزاك الله خير.